Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Welcome to Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zein. I'm a psychotherapist, an author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. I'm so thrilled to have you join me today for what I promise you to be a truly an enlightening discussion. In this episode, I chat with Dr. Peter Christensen, who's all the way from Denmark. And in the last 30 years, he has worked as a doctor, a personal advisor, and conflict resolution mediator. Through his work, he realized that our performance and perfection-obsessed culture is the most pervasive, yet often hidden villain in our lives. So he wrote the ultimate life skill to help people break free from the existing paradigm and shifts toward a new one that we could live with and allowing us to experience a more fulfilled life. You can find his books in theultimatelifeskills.com. And we spoke about the ability to be aware, the ability to tune into your body, to tolerate it, to be with it. And being able to do that, then allowing us to create choices and the choices that are best for us and how to let go of the habits that we form and that we no longer want. And to be able to have free choices, although we discuss about how we don't have free will, but you definitely, by noticing, becoming aware, being with who you are, have the ability to create better and freer choices for the betterment of your life. Him as a chiropractor, he saw that he was able to reduce pain for, with his patients. And then he started looking at his own body and what is it that keeps getting in the way of different types of anguishes that are around. And is it about whatever happens from outside or inside, or is it the way that we can tolerate, be with, and then make the right choices? He talks about none of this is easy, but how to make it an effortless. And he teaches us how to do that at the end of our conversation. So I'm sure that you'll enjoy this conversation as much as I did. Now, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. If you like what you're hearing, subscribe to it, share it with people, let people know, and go to my YouTube channel. And again, subscribe so you get all of the latest videos that come in directly to you. Connect with me through my website, foojanzein.com, or any of my social media platform. Be sure to go to Foojan app. You can have it from Apple or Google. We have the AI chatbot, which has been trained specifically in awareness integration. When you go to the app, you actually get access to 30 different areas of life where you could go through the phases of awareness integration, kind of look at your relationship with the world, with different people in your life. Become aware of you. What kind of behaviors do you do? What skills do you need? What needs to be cut out? All of those is a journey that you actually take through a guided journaling, through the Foojan app. And then you also have your assistant, Mira, which is there and can support you anytime you want to ask questions. She will respond to you from the awareness integration. Like you have a personal counselor at your hand anytime you like, but you can't find your counselors or therapists and all of that. So I'm positive you'll enjoy that. Share your thoughts with me anytime. I love to hear from you. Trust me, I love to hear from you. Any suggestions, any comments, things you like, things you don't, let me know. Now, without further ado, here's Dr. Peter Christensen.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zein, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now. Well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you, Peter Christensen, Dr. Peter Christensen, from Denmark, all the way from the other side of the world. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, you have a book released, which is called The Ultimate Life Skills. And so you first started your career with the physical body and really healing healing people from there. And then you really got that there's other things that are happening within the body, and you got interested in the emotional aspect and the thought process and how people, could be free of their struggle, their anguish. So what got you from being a chiropractor to, writing this book and really looking at how we go through the journey of life with all of our anguish that happens, and how can we be free with them?
That's going far back. Well, I soon realized that what I was primarily treating or helping people get rid of was pain in the physical body. And I very early I realized that there was such a small part, and what I mostly did was help people get rid of some pain so they could get back into the kind of hamster wheel and run, and all these performance and perfection obsessed culture we live in, as I call it. So it's kind of like they came with pain, and if I help them get rid of the pain, it's kind of like I have this metaphor, I don't know if you have it in English also, that you're under the water and you just barely get your nose up and get a breath, and then you're under the water again. So very early I felt like I wanted to help people with more than that. And so that was the very, very first small seeds in me. On top of that, of course, I was a young guy, and soon I realized that even though I objectively seen was highly successful, I had good practices, I had a wonderful wife, 3 kids, and objectively seen I had everything. But it was like there was still something missing. I was yearning for something that I at the time I didn't see it. It was kind of subconscious, but looking back, I think I could use the words I was looking for, searching for happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And there was always something missing. As soon as I reach another goal and another objectively seen very great thing, the moment I had it, something else. And that's when I realized that there was something we were missing. I started looking at following all the thought leaders from the very normal thing, research with my scientific background, but also the much more woo-woo stuff and crazy stuff. And what is it? And I kind of found that it was like it was all some mind. You had to believe in angels or life after death or some kind of God or divine or something that yeah, I felt that it wasn't really me. So I said, what is it that we are not getting right or not getting at all? And that's where my journey that ended up with this book started. Because again, looking back on the way, it was kind of I was building the plane while flying. So I didn't know until like 5-10 years that what I found that we were missing was that everything we learned, or the belief was that, oh, you have to change your thinking. But I realized that there's something much deeper in our body that controls us. And our brain is most of the time, or almost all the time, doing a great job, but because the brain knows, it helps us solve the problem, which is some restlessness or pain or emotional stuff in our body. And the brain is fantastic in helping us. So if your brain found out that alcohol would kind of relieve your whatever happened in your body, then you drank too much or even become an alcoholic. If it was sugar, then you start having too much sugar, or early on, if you had a smoke and that was kind of your drug that helped you get this relief, then you started smoking and had a hard time stopping that, or shopaholic, or sex addicted, or whatever. We all have our drugs. So I realized that I had to, and the people I worked with had to find this, become aware of this thing and start tolerating it. Because the only way we could really change what messed our lives up, most of the time, it works well. We have the willpower is enough, but we all had like 1, 5, 10% that messed up our life. It was alcohol or all this stuff I mentioned, or even that's what I realized later on, that even our intimate relationship, being able to be ourselves, express our emotions, say I'm sorry if we did something that hurt other people, all these things where we felt bad, was also this emotional stuff that we had to be able to tolerate, rocking the boat inside. So if I wanted to have more intimate relationship, I had to be more honest and authentic. And if I couldn't be with whatever that created in my body, I had to lie, or I had to be inauthentic, or hold something back. So it was all areas of life that we had to look at this inside and be able to tolerate what we had in our bodies, so we could stop drinking or stop smoking or stop doing irrational things and act wisely, get this more freedom of choice to act wisely. And that's when I started to that's where when I realized that, and I helped myself, then I wanted to write this book, find how can I convey this in a way so normal people that are not going into therapy, that don't like mindfulness or don't believe in all this woo-woo stuff, just ordinary people like most of us, can actually use it without being repelled by some theory or something. And how can I put it in a way? So I made this story as a fictional story. So just by reading the story, you take up these new beliefs about how the nervous system works. Okay.
Thank you. Yes, a couple of things that you said were very interesting, where you shared as we're biological beings, so we actually receive data from the outside world consistently, and our body reacts to it. And many times the way that our body reacts to it is with these kind of strong emotions that show up for us. And because we don't know how to handle these emotions and tolerate them and bring ourselves back into a homeostatic place, that we create all of these other ways. We get scared of our emotion, and we kind of create all these other ways of trying to shut it down and get out of it and run away from it. And that's why a lot of the other habits show up, because we're trying to cope somehow, whether it's the alcohol or the drug, or working too hard or too much, or anything that we distract ourselves from that intense emotion because we can't tolerate it. You're saying that it not only kind of like ruins your mood, but it also creates pain in your body. So that the more that we have the ability to contain, to tolerate, to be with, to see it, and not try to run away from it, is what actually holds us into being true to ourselves, being honest with ourselves, and have the ability and the skills to manage whatever else is showing up in our life, and versus kind of like numbing ourselves or depending on something above and beyond ourselves to come in and fix me. If I can't handle this anxiety, but I'm going to let go and, imagine something else that is going to help me, versus to have the actual skills to come in, be with my body, handle my body, and calm myself down, or excite myself, whatever it is needed at that moment, to be able to be gearing myself toward a better life, versus just shooting up for happiness. You also talked about free will and you called it an illusion of free will, because obviously, there's a lot of scientific conversation about this, right? Neuroscience says we don't have any, because half of the time, before you're conscious about something that you think you're actually making a decision, that your anatomy has already made that decision for you, and you kind of, go into the behavioral mode of it. So there is really no free will, because you're not necessarily always paying attention to that. But there's also this other piece of that, well, we do have choices that we could, do. We're not just robots that are programmed, that you could shift the programming, or you could, assess, and at that assess and do some behaviors that are suitable for you. And based on your assessment, you're going to do. So some parts of this is conscious. Some parts of it is kind of making choices. Can you share a little bit about your perspective? As you say, we're all in the illusion of free will.
Yes, I think that's the foundation. And like you said, there's a lot of talks and theories and opinions about philosophical and psychological about this free will. And what I've done in my book is I made everything in the book. I've taken away all this professional differences, which is the small stuff, and say this: what's reality? So my take on it is that we keep forgetting that we are mostly an animal with a mind, with a consciousness. So when you and I talk about it, we know from a professional level that that's how it is. But when we go out and are in the normal world and with everybody else, then we all act like, oh, he did this, and how could he do this, and like we have free will. But mostly we are run and controlled by our subconscious, and then we have this consciousness that keeps making up and telling us that it made the decision, even though it doesn't. And that's such a crucial fact, because then everything changes. We can still be irritated that somebody do something that they shouldn't have done, ourselves included, having bad habits or saying something we shouldn't have done. But it's a totally different way of being able to forgive ourselves, knowing I know I'm just an animal with a brain that makes up that it's in control. So instead of punishing myself or banging myself in the head, I can say, how can I get just a little more control? And that's kind of what you're saying, that we have a responsibility, but we are not in control. So we all have our drugs. So if I see somebody that has a different drug than me, let's say some that drink or smoke, I could be very normal and say, oh, why doesn't he just stop? She knows it's bad for her or him. Instead I'm saying, oh, that's too bad, poor woman or man, they are not in control. There's something driving this behavior. They keep trying to change it, just like my drug has always been sugar. This thing that if I open a bag of something sweets, I take one, then it's 100 times more difficult to not take the second one than not taking the first one. Just like an alcoholic, it's just a different drug, and alcohol is a terrible thing because it changes your way of acting, where sugar just is not good for you. Anyway, so knowing that I'm not in control, and this is one of my 1, 5, 10%. Most of the time I can do what I want to do. So this is the illusion of free will. And so what I realized, and my take on it, I realized that to get a little more control, then I had to be able to tolerate craving. If there were no cravings, there would be no bad habits. So it's instead of this normal thing, now I won't do it, and then 2 days later I take one and then I'm back on the stuff. Then I realized that if I just waited like 30 seconds, everybody can wait 30 seconds to take some sugar or cigarette or whatever. And if I did that and stayed with whatever, with this craving, this sensation, this restlessness or whatever it was, then slowly I became more able to tolerate it. I don't know if this makes sense, but as soon as the better I became as tolerating it. So let's say now I could tolerate it anytime, then I had a true free choice to do it or not. Then I could go from abuse back to use, because there's so many things, all the things we can get addicted to are something that releases these chemicals in your brain that makes you feel good, right? So I think you would be stupid not to use them. Have some sugar, buy some nice things you would like, have sex, have alcohol if you want that, all these things. But they're also what we can get addicted to or abuse, so that will ruin our health or ruin our economy, finances, because we buy too much, or our relationships if we can't handle, if somebody says something, we have a bad temper, or if we can't be honest because we can't handle what happens inside us if we admit how we feel or what we've done. So I realized that it was all the same thing. And that's why I came up with this book and system where people learn to just stop every time they do something that they had decided not to or would rather not do. Then they stop and just notice. And my book is actually, again, this might sound weird, and English is not my first language, so I had help also from my editor to have my book into proper English. But of course, all the stuff is my own. But it's kind of deceiving normal people that are not into therapy, and not into mindfulness, not into spirituality, not into all of this stuff, but want a better life, and want better relationship, want less stress, want be more fulfilled, kind of being tricked into doing what therapy, mindfulness, meditation, getting off the hamster wheel does. Because, nobody wants mindfulness or therapy or any of these. They want the effects of it. They want the benefits. So I focused on the benefits, and then they don't realize that what they're actually doing is what people that go in therapy learn, or people that do mindfulness. But it's all back to, we are controlled. When something messes up our lives, it's because we cannot handle something happening in our body. So by reading my book, people indirectly, naturally learn to do it without even practicing it, to stop and notice what happens, and getting more and more used to it. The extreme of this is when what we call being triggered. Most people have some area where if somebody says something, or something happens in traffic, or their wife or husband or whatever, then they do something, they're triggered and react immediately. But what I'm teaching people and telling people is that we're actually all triggered to some degree all the time. So we're all just what you kind of recapitulated before, or whatever, summated or whatever, that this thing is happening all the time to some degree, up and down all the time. And sometimes we are triggered, but we are all the time controlled. Our nervous system is always looking at what could this, if we go this direction, how would that affect? And then we don't do it. So if we learn to notice and become better at tolerating all this, then we'll slowly become able to act much more wisely. And that's what ends up saying no and more yes to the right things, having less bad habits, being authentic. So slowly we get more and more of the life we want and we have decided to do, because there's less and less that drags us in a different direction that we know we shouldn't have done.
So
Does this make sense?
Absolutely. I translate it this way in my head. So let me share what I'm hearing from you. What I get from you is that body has its own way of creating homeostasis consistently. You know, like if your sugar goes up, your body knows how to bring it down. If something happens to you, you know, if you go through a pain, it knows how to send opioids through there to calm down your pain. You're saying that if your body as a machinery, as the animal, is already equipped with knowing how to handle triggers as it shows up and is constantly putting itself and adapting to whatever it is, either to, you know, to survive pretty much. So what I get from you is like, you know what? We're going to constantly get triggered by the external world. And what we do is we try to change the external world. We try to control the external world. We try to do different things in order to manufacture some sort of like calmness and homeostasis. And you're saying that we don't need to do all of that. All we need to do is to come back and just quiet down and be with our body. And as you get to know your body and your body is telling you what you do, the tolerating, you call it tolerating, being with it. And especially we can use tolerating because these are excessive emotions that supposedly are kind of, you know, feeling negative somehow. They're uncomfortable somehow. So you use the word tolerance. Is like, if I just sit with this tolerance of these negative emotions that are showing up or these negative reactions that are showing up, that then I can be more, you know, my body goes into clearing itself or letting it go or releasing it. And as that happens, then I can have better choices where, if, you know, my emotions and my body reactions won't be affecting this kind of like the brain frontal cortex. And based on that, then I can make the right choices for myself. So for example, in your example of I'm having craving, if I can be with the craving, then I can make a choice of not to, you know, go back and use the sugar. So there is this, yes, well, the brain is also part of the animal. It's just the, you know, we're the evolved animal. So the brain has evolved because of creating those choices. But because the body reacts before it actually gives information to the brain, we also need to be more conscious of our body, so that the right information can get into the brain, and therefore the brain can turn around and utilize it for making better choices for ourselves. Is that what I got, kind of?
Yes, I think my words for what you're saying, oh, sorry. My words for what you're saying is that, oh, most of the time, what happens in your body informs your brain. It is fine. You do wise choices. So it's where you in your work you talk a lot about we're traumatized, or trauma for people that have trauma. And maybe you think the same, but in my view, we're all traumatized, because as these animals we have these mirror neurons. So constantly from age 3 or 4, our minds pick up what happens in everybody else. And when we are 3, 4, 5 years old, and then we are very dependent on our parents and our caretakers. So and our brains pick up, are our parents happy or not happy. So you don't have to be in a bad family or bad upbringing. Even the best upbringing, you'll still pick up when your parents are happy for what you do or not happy. And because we are just humans, as parents also, sometimes we yell, sometimes we're angry, our fuse is short, blah, blah, blah. So we learn, our kids learn, all human beings learn that there's some part of them that is not okay. So my point is that the parts where we start acting unwisely is when something happens in our body that we misinterpret. So let's say when I'm a kid in school, I'm bullied. Just as an instance, all my parents, when I'm very active and fun, then they're like, calm down, calm down. So I learn that that's not okay to be like that. Then when I'm 30 years old, 40 years old, then when I'm 3, 4, 5 years old, I could die if my parents didn't want to take care of me. So when they are sad, then it sits in my nervous system, which it should, because, oh, this is danger. But when I'm 20, 30, 40, if somebody, when I'm out with other people and somebody don't agree with me, then there's no danger. But still, if I don't see this, it's subconscious, then this will control my actions. But it's out of it's a false thing. It's not dangerous. And that's where this, I think that your therapy, awareness integration therapy, and my work, then if I said, oh, I shouldn't feel bad being around people, I feel bad, then I have to re-educate or recondition, as we might call it, my nervous system, telling it it's not dangerous. And the only way to do this is to desensitize. So I have to start in small steps, being a little more out loud with people, and realizing that most of the time they're just laughing and like me, and once in a while maybe there's somebody I think that I'm too loud, but slowly, by stopping, noticing, accepting there's something going on in my body, and realizing, just like if you have a phobia with spiders, for instance, which is an example in my book, then one way to get rid of the phobia is first you try imagining you go into a cinema and look at a spider on a screen, and it starts a little bit of this in your body, but you can accept it. And then slowly the next thing, you imagine you go up to the screen, there's still no spider, and the next step is that you actually have a spider in a room but far away behind a glass, and that's the exact same I use in my book, like the example with the social awkwardness or whatever. And so it's the body. The body is mistaking, and that's going back to just this normal stupid sugar thing. The craving, until you stop and notice this, we call craving, but just something happening in your body, your nervous system reacts like it's danger. And when this happens, then there's a pathway in your brain where the reptile part of your brain, or the primitive part, cuts off the rational part. So no matter how much you practice willpower, the willpower is just down the drain, and your hand gets its own will and start doing this, right? And this is every time. So that's so it's not all the time the body is doing stupid things. Most of the time it's doing great stuff, and it helps you notice it. So it's only these 1, 5, 10% that we all have that mess up our lives, our relationships, our stress level, our jobs, our bodies, our economy, that we need to do this. But that's also how I built up the book. Instead of just meditating or just doing mindfulness and then hoping that it will help something, you do it in the context. So you start with bad habits. Okay, what bad habit do you want to work on? I'm not the judge of what is a bad habit. That's the reader that decides what's a bad habit. Some people want to eat sugar all day and don't think it's a bad habit. I'm not the judge. That's not my decision. And some people smoke, but some people like me, a lot of people say, well, you're a perfectionist because that it's not that much sugar you eat. But still, if I made up my mind, I don't want to eat this sugar tonight, and I do it, then it's still a bad habit in my view. And then I have to look at it. I have to notice this craving, this sensation that messes up my brain, that my body picks up like danger and cuts off my rational mind. And in all these different contexts, being able to say yes, being able to say no, being able to be authentic, all this stuff is where I have the reader stop where they want to make changes that they haven't been able to, and notice what happens and getting used to it, making it tolerable, so they get a freedom of choice, so they can do it or not do it with sugar or with yelling or with whatever.
The Ultimate Life Skills by Dr. Peter Christensen. I'd like to open this up because we passed through it, and there are a lot of words here where it might get confusing, because in one sense, you're sharing that there is no willpower and that the body decides beyond you. The body has...
Can I interrupt you? I'm sorry, because I'm not saying there's no willpower. Because of course we have willpower.
Sorry.
I'm saying that we are we don't have a free will.
Yeah.
Because I always, the reason, I'm sorry I interrupted you, but the reason I do that is because very often there's this misconception. I'm just saying we don't have free will, which is have all the willpower in the world, but we do have willpower. And sometimes the willpower is cut off because our body picks something up as danger when it's not. So I'm sorry.
No, it was very good. That's why I wanted to make sure that we go over this again, because there's a conversation where there is no free will, but there is willpower. And part of what you're sharing in your book is that you can only have free willpower choices when you are noticing when you are noticing where you are out of control. So when you actually notice that this is something happening with you, and you can notice it, be aware of it, tolerate it, handle it, then you have the free will to be, not free will, to have the willpower to be able to make the right choices for you. And if you experience a habit that you no longer want to continue because you're having consequences around it, or that's your choice, then at that moment, this is the path to be able to make those choices. So can you also give us a little bit of a skill about how to notice and how to tolerate? Because these are the major pieces of your model. And as you're working, how do you tune in and not get misrepresentation of it? How do you tune in, and how do you what are some of the ways to learn how to be with it and tolerate it? Because I think this is the biggest hurdle that people go through, right? They just can't tolerate it. It's like, I can't handle it. You know, I've worked with a lot of people. Even last week, I was working with somebody who has heightened anxiety, and we were talking about how to be with the anxiety, how to sit, and then what to do, and all of that. And she just says, well, don't you ever get anxiety? Don't you know how this goes? I can't handle it. And you can see this like amount of emotions that's showing up. And it's like, all right, yes, we can, let's see how to handle it. And I want you to share with people is, what are your ways of handling and tolerating, noticing and tolerating?
Yes, if I can first just shortly, this thing about willpower. So the way we are made in our brains is we have this reptile brain, this primitive brain, like a lot of animals have, and then we have this rational brain up on top of it. But the thing is that it's the reptile brain, the primitive part, that's in control, so it can just cut off the rational part, and it's in the rational part our will is. So we can decide all kind of stuff. We want to do this, we want to do that, but if we get afraid, then the willpower will be cut off. So we have lots of willpower, but the thing is we can be hijacked, and it's not only on and off. It's kind of, if we get a little afraid, we get less and less connection to the rational parts. And if we are totally loose and feel good, then all the connections, we can act wisely. So that's just basic neurology. So how to practice this is so simple, and it's not necessarily easy. We have to do it again and again and again, but it's not difficult. It's not, but it's something we have to do a lot of time each day. But we can do it automatically. So the way I have practiced and the way I tell people to practice is very simple. It's just every time you do something that you don't want to do, that you feel you shouldn't do, or you have decided not to do. And in my book, I start with a bad habit, and then it's with unnecessary stress and worry and better relationships and all this. But every time you do something, it's because something takes over control of what you have decided or what you want to do. And all you have to do is, when it happens, stop. And you don't really have to do anything else than these three things. Stop and notice what is happening. Pause as long as you want. There's no time limit. And then go back to what you're going to do anyway and notice, because it's all about getting an awareness. And if you do this, you will automatically start being able to tolerate it better. Because remember what I said, it's because your nervous system acts like you're in danger. But it's obvious that if you don't get your cigarette or sugar, then you're not in danger. So as soon as your nervous system keep experiencing this, and in the start it might be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, and the great thing is that you don't have to use willpower, because this is without relying on willpower. So I specifically in my book keep repeating, don't make this a willpower game. Just do as you want to. If you feel like doing it for 15 seconds, fine. And sometimes after a while, like say after a week or 2 or 3, suddenly you just start realizing that, I wanted a cigarette, I wanted sugar, I wanted to go on the internet and buy something, I wanted to gamble, whatever. And you start realizing, now after 30 seconds, a minute or two, it kind of went away. I didn't have to, so I went back and did nothing. And then maybe later that day, you did have a cigarette, but slowly but surely it will start changing without you trying to tolerate it. Just by sitting with it, your nervous system will calm down. So there's none of it where you, in all of this, there's nothing where you have to try to do something or use your willpower. All you have to do is stop and notice. And I'm sure also people listening will get this. How often or when have anybody said, just stop and notice? Because we're on the run all the time, and we are saying, oh, why did I do this? And blah, blah, blah. Somebody eating something or taking a cigarette or yelling at somebody or without even noticing. So it's no wonder that all you have to do is do something else, which is stop. 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, just by doing this simple stop. And for as long as you can pause and notice and then continue. You can have all the cigarettes, you can do all the stuff you would do anyway, but slowly, just by noticing, just by stopping, then it will change. And you asked to me, I've done this for 30 years since I realized that what was controlling this yearning that kept what I needed at that time was I needed another success to get my brain to put chemicals in me so that the sadness, the discomfort, the restlessness in my body was suppressed and numbed. For me, it was success that I had to all the time because of my childhood stuff that I could go into, but I don't think it's necessary. We all have our childhood stuff. So slowly but surely, when I didn't need my pill, my drug, like we all have, but looked at it, I removed the different tensions, the different cravings. So now it takes much more. I'm not perfect. My life is not perfect. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I can be stressed and I can be triggered, but it happens so much more rarely because I've just like, from therapy, like I said, this is therapy for people that are not going to therapy. This where you deal with old sadness or old wounds and all this. It's kind of the same, that you clear up all this stuff that challenge you, and that actually is part of a bad spiral. Because let's say I'm stressed and I want success, and I'm a pleaser, I can't say no, then I keep infusing my life with more stress because I can't say no, because I want people to like me, and I keep feeling bad about myself because I have bad habits and feel really and I have bad problem with my economy or my health or my weight or whatever. So this kind of starts a upwards good spiral where you slowly get less anxiety, less stress, less triggered, act more wisely. And then you get to this point where you can use and not abuse. Have a lot of sugar when you want it, or have a cake once in a while, but it's not like you take a cigarette and then you start smoking again the next day. You can be authentic when it's wise, when you're with people where you want to be authentic, and you can be private with private people, but professional or personal, even with strangers, and have better and better relationships. So your life becomes more the way you want it, and inside your body is more tranquil, what's it called? Because you've removed all the old stuff, so it's only new stuff. Kind of you had all these old blackboards with the chalk, and it's all written up, but you start slowly erasing. So you have much more black, and you have something on it, and you have to only erase a little bit. I'm still just a human being that is controlled by my primitive brain, but much less much more often there's the connection to my rational mind is still there. So I need much less willpower, which is great because we only have this certain amount. Does this make sense? Does that answer your question?
Very much, yes. Everyone, The Ultimate Life Skill by Dr. Peter Christensen. Dr. Peterson, 1 minute. We're already kind of passing the time. 1 minute or so. Is there anything we haven't shared that you really, really want people to know?
Yes, I think there's two things. First of all, this is just, I put it as a fictional book. So all you have to do is read a fictional story about 14 people. You see it from the outside. It's much easier to recognize some faults that are outside of yourself instead of inside, but sure you will see something from your own life or people you know, so you will understand this just by reading it. And the second thing, which it's kind of a cliffhanger, but all this, how great it might sound that you can conquer your bad habits, you can get less unnecessary stress and worry, better relationship. But the actual benefit, what I call the ultimate life benefit, is actually being more conscious, coming to a point where when you start practice this, we take in more of life. So instead of hurrying through life and after the weekend or after you say, oh, where does this weekend go, or where does the year go, and time moves so fast. Because when we practice this, we also become more aware all the time. So my metaphor is, if instead of earlier, let's say I took in 1 bit each second. Now I take in 12 bits. So instead of a year feeling like a month, a year feels like a year. Instead of a year feeling like a year, it feels like 12 years. So time stops flying by. You can be present with other people, present with yourself. So apart from all these benefits we talked about this whole time, this is what I call a more rich life, more conscious life, more fulfilled life, because we are actually present. You become actually present with yourself and people around you, and take in much more. So get off the hamster wheel and autopilot and actually take in life in such a different way. Beautiful. And so much more. So
beautiful. Thank you. Where can people find you?
Well, my book is on Amazon, and I have a book website. It's called The Ultimate Life Skill, because that's what I feel awareness is. It is the ultimate life skill. So it's theultimatelife.skill.com, or The Ultimate Life Skill on Amazon is where you can buy the book. But go to the website. Actually, go to the website. You can sign up on my list, and then you get the first 2 chapters, including The Illusion of Free Will, for free, and you can read them. Or very soon I'm having an audio made. You can get either right now you can just get the PDF for the first 2 chapters, but very soon you'll get the audio for free, and see if it motivates you and you like it, and take it from there.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us from the other side of the world. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy, developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine, is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.